In March of 2022, the Florida Institute for Child Welfare sent a documentary crew to interview child welfare professionals across Florida. We sat down with child protective investigators and specialists to hear their firsthand experiences from the field. As the Institute works to promote the well-being of the children and families involved in the child welfare system, we recognize how critical the stability and well-being of the workforce is to the effectiveness of child welfare services. Their experiences matter. In these interviews, frontline workers share their perspectives on the current state of the child welfare system, both the good and the bad. But most importantly, they share their passion to strengthen the families they work with. These CPIs and specialists come from the Florida Department of Children and Families and Heartland for Children, a child welfare service provider network that includes support and prevention services for foster care, adoptions, and independent living. Here are their stories.
I'm Caitlin Larson. I'm a child protective investigator with the Florida Department of Children and Families in Okaloosa County, Florida. There is no normal day in the life of my job. Every day you don't really know what you're walking into. I'm going to try and walk you through a semi-normal day. Usually when I get to work, I have a case handed to me, and this is a new investigation that we received from the Child Abuse Hotline. I look through the case, look up the family, research family members, and see kind of what I'm getting myself into. And then from there, I go out to commence my investigation. Usually that takes quite a bit of the day, talking to the children first, then the family members, then the parents, and the alleged perpetrators. By the time I'm done with that, I have just enough time to get back to the office and do my paperwork.
My name is Natanya Bernard, and I'm a senior child protective investigator with the Department of Children and Families here in Florida. The day in the life of an investigator is, first of all, very unpredictable. You set goals, what you'd like to have accomplished for that day, whether that's doing a home visit, case closures, putting in some notes, catching up with services for the family. But first thing in the morning, you check your email and you realize that that day is not going to go as planned. And so it is very important that an investigator is able to balance and to think on their feet and to be adjustable to changes, because I always joke around and say the C in DCF stands for changes. As soon as you get ready and you plan something, something is going to change.
I'm Bronte Prophet. I work for the Department of Children and Families as a child protective investigator. What I wish people understood about the department is, the first thing is that we're not there to take your kids. The most important thing that I wish they understood is that we're there simply to strengthen their family. And if we can get their family strengthened, then of course their kids can stay there, which is what we want.
My name is Amanda Fowler. I'm a child protective investigator with the Department of Children and Families. Our goal is to help strengthen the bonds between families and find where their weakest points are and offer them services to kind of help strengthen that and ensure that they don't keep coming back into the department. That's what our goal is.
Hello, my name is Audrey Rodriguez, and I work with Heartland for Children, and I am a relicensing specialist. I wish they understood that it takes a lot of communication, it takes a lot of compassion, being genuine. Foster parents just call me just to kind of vent, talk through things.
I think the biggest thing I wish people understood about our profession is, well, first, people think that we remove children all the time or that we want to remove them, and that's not the case. We're there to protect children and ensure their safety. I wish people knew the procedures that we went through just to identify if a child's unsafe. If I identify that a child's unsafe, I have to talk to my supervisor, then my supervisor's supervisor, then my supervisor's supervisor's supervisor, and then the legal team. You know, it's not just this thing that happens in 5 seconds. We have to really make sure that the decision we're making is the right decision. There's a big misconception in our profession that we get paid to remove children, that we get income per child, per removal. And I think that's just the craziest thing, and I wish that people understood that that is not the case at all. Taking children is our last resort. They drill it into our heads in training from day one that is the most traumatic thing you can do to a child, and all of our efforts go into trying to keep these children with their families or with family members. So a removal is our absolute last resort.
My name is Joanna Segura. I'm a senior child protective investigator with the Department of Children and Families. A lot of people aren't just really aware that these things are actually helping, and there's such a stigma towards it. When you think of DCF, everybody always just thinks about, taking people's children. That's unfortunately one part of our job, but our job is part of the family preservation and keeping families together and kind of building them as a support system. A lot of people don't realize that, so when they see us, they automatically put on this tough front. They don't want to talk to us, but if they realize what we're actually there for and that we're actually there to help them, it may make our jobs a lot easier.
What I'd like everyone to know about my job as an investigator is that we're not the bad guys. And that's one of the things I tell families when I go into their home. I'm not here to tear your home apart. My job is to come in and see where I can support so that I can maintain a healthy family unit. My job is not to come in here and take your kids away from you and put you through all this additional trauma, because believe it or not, removing the kids even from an abusive situation is traumatic for them too. My job is to come in and say, how can I safely keep this family together? And just to know that we're here as providers, we're service providers.
Child welfare professionals enter the field for many personal reasons: to create change, empower families, put empathy into action, and because they may have been positively influenced by a child welfare professional in their own life. For those we interviewed, their dedication to their career came down to a desire to help children and families.
My name is Anthony Johnson. I'm a child protective investigator for Fort Walton Beach. Before this, I worked for the Department of Juvenile Justice for 6 years. Before that, I was in the military for 14 years. Personally, I just dedicated myself to service and serving young people. Just dealing with teenage youth in the juvenile system kind of led me here to kind of peel back the onion even more, to understand what's going on and what kind of led children to make the decisions and choices that they made. And it had to come from their family unit or their living situation, and come to find out there's some connectivity to those two things. So that kind of led me to the Department of Children and Families. Just talking to children for the last 5 or 6 years while I was in the Department of Juvenile Justice, and really just understanding the children's home life and how that impacted their choices, which led them to the Department of Juvenile Justice.
I used to be a felony probation officer, so I wanted to help people earlier in the process. So I decided that maybe this would be a good opportunity to come over to the department and start a little bit earlier with the family to prevent them from being sentenced to a lengthy prison sentence.
I started as a juvenile detention officer, and I was there for a couple of years. And I saw a direct correlation between kids that were in the detention center being linked to kids that were abused. And you'd hear their backstory. And a lot of these kids were coming out of really, really bad home situations. And so I decided to not necessarily be on the corrective end, but to see if I can get in a front end to where you can mitigate some of these kids going into the system and try to fix the homes where they were. I've also been a foster parent to try to help out in that area as well, because my heart really is for family and for children. And so you get to see the progression of a family getting better. But I absolutely love this career. It takes a special kind of person to do this, but I really love the interaction that I get and the difference that I get to make with families every day.
Hi, I'm Jessica Price, and I am the Executive Director of the Florida Institute for Child Welfare. Many years ago, I studied sociology, and I was very interested in social problems and how they impact families, and also how they impact kids. In 2010, I started as a child protective investigator with the Department of Children and Families, and I was there for 2 years before I transitioned to working on my doctorate. And I made that transition because within 6 months, half of my training class had left. And as many people know, when folks resign so early on, we inherit their cases. So I noticed that, but I kept going, I kept working. And throughout my time at DCF, I just noticed workforce issues, systemic issues. And from that role, I wasn't really able to make an impact. And I decided to work on my doctorate. And throughout my 5 years of getting my PhD, I was exclusively focused on workforce issues within child welfare. The impact that I made every day with families was amazing, and that's what I focused on in that role. But then when I started to see those larger systemic issues, I felt powerless to how am I going to figure out how to bring people into this field that I love and not make it so they have to leave so quickly after, that they just can't bear it.
Turnover in the child welfare industry is a national struggle, with profound consequences for vulnerable children and families, including delaying permanency decisions and impacting multiple child and family outcomes. The Institute's longitudinal study, the Florida Study of Professionals for Safe Families, examined individual and organizational influences on child welfare employee retention. We found 3 years after starting their first job in child welfare, 78% of workers had left their original child welfare agency. Workers most commonly leave their jobs due to the significant challenges they face in their job responsibilities, as well as the agency's environment.
The most challenging part of this job is the fact that it's busy. You know, child abuse reports never stop coming in, and we are constantly out trying to assess the safety of children and do our paperwork, and it does get to be a lot sometimes.
The most challenging part would be just when I have families that are frustrated just with the system, don't always understand it, and I try to work with them and just really talk them through it. I know it's difficult at times, and a lot of the times the system, it doesn't always make sense, but the system is the system, so.
The most challenging part of my job is I'm a single mother of 3 kids. I have 3 very energetic boys, and so for me, that is a very challenging part of my job, because my job every day is to go out and make sure other kids are safe, and at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, but are my kids safe? When I'm on call, I have to make sure that they have appropriate supervision so I can go out and make sure that someone else's child is safe. You know, so that for me is one of the hardest things, is to know that there are days when I'm on call or I go out on a case and I have to pick my kids up, but then I have to call my backup, or they have a program at school and I have to miss it because I'm stuck on a case. But my kids, they love my job as much as I do, and they're proud of the fact that their mom helps people.
The most challenging is to prevent yourself from getting burned out. You can say that, you know, I'm not going to take this case home with me, or I'm not going to think about it, but it's very difficult when you're dealing with people's lives. And for example, a domestic violence situation, kids are involved, and I'm going to just automatically turn that off my brain when I go home. I'm going to continue to think about, hey, did I do everything that I could in the initial contact with this family to make sure that everybody is safe in the home, the kids are safe, we're not going to have another incident until we can make sure that additional resources and services are in the home. So that is the most challenging, is just kind of trying to shut your brain off to not think about, you know, what you did do or didn't do and what you can do moving forward, which creates burnout.
Burnout leads to turnover. In our research, the Institute found that stressors like the burden created by administrative requirements, large, demanding caseloads, unpredictable schedule, and a lack of well-functioning team lead to child welfare professionals leaving their jobs. Mitigating burnout and the stressors that cause it is one of the cornerstones of the Institute's work. How do we take care of our workforce and make sure that they can take care of themselves?
You have to have a good team of people. It takes a team of people, whether it's a coworker who may had prior experience with the family that you're currently having an issue with, and just taking that person as a tag along and kind of be that bridge between you and that family. It's a job that you really can't do by yourself exclusively, as just by yourself. You need a group of people, a team of people to make it work and to make things go every day.
My name is Todd Harden, and I'm with Heartland for Children. I'm a placement specialist. Well, Heartland for Children do encourage family time. So whenever we feel a little stressed, they'll tell you, take some time off and spend time with your family. Put that phone down, you know.
We're all helping out each other. We're on a rotation for, our on-calls, so we're not on call for a week at a time. We rotate every day, so kind of helps with the burnout. Burnout's kind of inevitable in this job, but I have a great supervisor that I can go in if I'm having a stressful day or something, just to kind of talk about what's going on. And she just kind of throws it back at me and just gives me a different perspective, and just kind of helps me not see it in one way.
We talk almost every day. We kind of check on each other throughout the day. We're going to have a tough case or someone's going to have a tough case. And we kind of help and assist each other throughout the day. But just forming that group, a nucleus, and being a work family, if you will, not just co-workers, but a work family.
If you're not on the day-to-day job, it's really hard to understand what we do every day. So I would have to say, I think appreciation in general is a huge thing within our industry that I think I would like to see more of. I also think that incentives are cool, or programs or trainings, which actually has been really helpful for me. I've been sent to trainings myself. And going to those trainings makes me work even harder because I'm like, wow, like I can keep going to these and learning more, and I'm doing better at my job.
And the environment here is very, very supportive. I remember at one time I brought my kids, because I didn't have a babysitter and I had to work, and I brought my kids into the office, and my PA was babysitting, the other investigators were babysitting. I came back, they had McDonald's because I had to go out on a case, but my supervisor watched my kids while I had to work. I love the environment here. Everybody's on the same page, they're supportive. We have some kids that were removed. Another investigator is making them pepperoni pockets, another one went and got them some lemonade. We're babysitting. So it's really a family here.
Just finding that time to take care of yourself, trying to find that peace, that and that time that you can kind of take for yourself, that half an hour, 45 minutes. And honestly, I mean, for me, I know once I hit the front door here, my day does not belong to me anymore. So I try to do it very early in the morning. I do work out. I do watch what I eat. But even some of us take that 10-minute brisk walk just around the parking lot just to release and clear our heads, and then we come back in and get back at it.
When I'm at work, I focus on work, and when I'm home, I focus on home. I kind of have to separate the two in order to not be burnt out and not to kind of mix both of them.
I love my dogs, so every morning before I do work, I make sure I walk both of my dogs, and it's kind of just like a relaxing time for me and kind of getting my head focused. And I take a lunch every day. I make sure I go and take a lunch. I don't have a working lunch, just to kind of disconnect out the day and refresh after lunch.
Our home life is our home life, and our work life is our work life, and mixing the two is going to lead to stress.
I'm very deliberate about work-life balance and caring for myself. I had a situation the other day where my computer kind of shut down, and there were notes and everything that were gone. And those are the days we call quitting days, to where I'm done, I'm leaving, but you know how to take a break.
The use of information and communication technology has become fully embedded in the child welfare workforce's daily routines. COVID-19 highlighted how technology can provide opportunities to strengthen child welfare practice by promoting communication and increasing ease and efficiency. It is, however, obvious to the workforce that there are countless opportunities for technology to be leveraged to support workers, children, and families.
The one thing that really has improved is the trip log. That's probably the biggest help to me, because I'm not having to write down whatever. I just can type it in my phone. It does all the tracking of the mileage and stuff for me, and then I can print the report out at the end of the month. So that makes it much easier. So I'm not having to constantly keep track of everything, just making sure that I put the stuff into the trip log. Yeah, because most of the changes that we have right now have come from other CPIs that say, hey, let's try this. It's always changing. So if you have an idea that could make something better, always present it to somebody, because who knows, it might make our job a little bit easier.
For us, because of COVID, we started a lot of court proceedings via Zoom as well. It made it a lot easier logistically. I think it's more expedited. It's an expedited process, if you will.
It's been a great thing to be able to work from home since the COVID pandemic. It did make things challenging for a lot of the families, just because kids were coming into care with COVID, and it was hard to find placement for those foster kids. So it definitely has made things a lot more difficult. However, we've all collectively as an agency been able to work together and to come up with more creative ideas on how to help families, how to help these children, and how to work together and just find appropriate homes for foster children.
The positive side of it is that I think that it showed our team, as well as the department as a whole, that we can function and work away from the office. We can do this job from home, from anywhere, from our cars, from anywhere. And we've proven that because we have the technology to do it.
Our technology definitely has improved. We have a new mileage app, which is so much more helpful than writing it all down on a piece of paper and trying to keep those pieces of paper tracked.
Technology in this field is one of the things I celebrate every day. I started with the department, like I said, doing this particular job back in 2006. And so for me, technology has evolved. When I started, we didn't have GPS, we used MapQuest. And so we would print the maps out from the office and try to figure out where we were going. My supervisor at the time would sit in the office with a map, and he would tell me, go down here, there's gonna be this road and turn here, like literally walking me through. Like everyone's interconnected now. I can't find a child because the address doesn't check out. I can call Access because chances are if you're getting food stamps or Medicaid, clients, believe it or not, put their correct address and phone numbers on their food stamps and Medicaid. So you can call there and they can link you up. Hey, this is where mom is. She just did an interview on the 1st. She verified this is her address. So technology and all the departments being interconnected makes it so much easier for us to access child safety.
Even with the numerous stressors of working in child welfare, workers gain a lot of satisfaction in their positions. Institute research found that helping children and families and visiting in their homes gives child welfare professionals job satisfaction. Knowing that their decisions and actions played a role in helping and making a difference in people's lives is rewarding.
So the most rewarding part of my work is when you meet a family. We always meet families at the worst part of their life. So when we are able to give them services and help them to get out of the worst part and to see them succeed, that's probably the best part of our job. So an example of that is, a family that is struggling. They have financial issues, and so it kind of creates tension between the parents, and there's arguing and stuff. So if you can get in there, help them find jobs or whatever, and that kind of relieves that stress, and so it just relieves the stress off the whole family, and then they get to succeed from there.
Again, making that connection between a parents or a family unit and a resource that's much needed in the home.
Getting to work with families, building that relationship with them, and really seeing how far foster children have come from the very beginning of them being placed in a home. Just seeing those success stories of whether it be reunification or adoption or whatever the permanency goal may be, that has been the most rewarding part of my job.
The most rewarding part of this job is to take hold of a family who believed that their situation was hopeless, and then giving them hope through linking them with community partners, services, resources to help them understand and educate them that, hey, there is a resource, there is a service for you and your family. We can strengthen your household and help you out.
But we just have the opportunity to make a change in someone's life. And there's that changing moment in your investigation when you're talking and you realize, this isn't neglect. This woman needs help. This mom is asking for help. She had been through the system herself, and she was just trying to care for her child and for herself. I recognized her needs, and I recognized that this isn't about, investigating the neglect necessarily. This is about trying to help her improve her life for her child. I was able to get her into a local program around the area for 6 months, and she and the baby are better than they've ever been.
The most rewarding part of my job now is, there's so many things, the most rewarding part. I've just come full circle, to be honest. I get to focus pretty much every day on how do I create change in the child welfare system for the people that are doing the work on the front lines, the people that are the first responders, the people that are often forgotten. So our institute is poised to transform child welfare, transform the workforce, and create an industry that people actually desire to join and that they are excited to join because of the impact that we're making organizationally. So I think it's most rewarding that I've been there, I've been in the field, and now I never forget that time, and I don't forget the people that are still doing the job.
When we sent our documentary crew to interview these frontline workers, we knew that we wanted to share their stories in their own words. We also wanted to give them the opportunity to speak directly to other child welfare professionals. We hope to raise their voice. This is the advice our interviewees offer to those entering child welfare.
Come in with an open heart, come in with an open mind, use what you learned in school. When that theory is put into practice, that theory is put into practice 20, 30 different ways every day. So if you have 29, 30 days in a month, what you learn and how you learn is going to be put into practice 15, 20 different ways. Be flexible and understand that this is probably one of the most selfless things you can ever do in your life. There are some challenges. There's going to be some tough days, there's going to be some rough days as well. But it's the overall goal of trying to help our youth in your local community.
It's just being genuine, compassionate, understanding. A lot of times that is all people need, and to hear them out.
The advice that I would give someone new that's entering into our profession is to get your tennis shoes on. You're going to be doing a lot of running. And the most important thing is being organized. So if you're organized, if you are motivated and ready to go, then this is a job for you.
Just go with the flow. Every day is going to be different. You can't plan and it's not going to go perfectly. So if you kind of just take it one step at a time, it's going to be a lot easier transition.
This work can be heavy at times, and I think it's really important to take care of yourself and take it day by day. I would also have to recommend, really getting time management down to begin with first, because that is a big part of a lot of jobs, and especially this one when it has to do with the safety of children. Time management is key. You never know what's going to happen, but it's also important to take it day by day, because you can't get caught up in what happened yesterday and let that affect your work the next day.
There's some jobs that I call calling jobs. It really does have to be a calling, something that you are willing to kind of sacrifice of yourself, because this job calls for that. This job calls for no lunch breaks, missing family time and activities. You're really going to be sacrificing bits and pieces of yourself. So you have to come to the realization that this job is going to require that. Are you willing to do that? I'm a mentor and a trainer here, and when I talk to the new hires, that's the first thing I tell them. Because if you stay just to have a job and you're frustrated and you're burnt out and your heart's not in this job, you start taking shortcuts. Shortcuts equals kids getting hurt and killed on this job. And so you need to make a decision, is this really for me? So that would be my number one advice to anyone going into not just social work, but being a DCF investigator. Just make sure this is something you really, really want to do. It is a very rewarding career. I love it. So you have to make sure that your heart is in this job and you're not just here because it's a job or it's something to put on your resume and it's going to provide you with a paycheck. It's going to require so much more than that.
The advice I would give to someone coming into my profession is have a passion for children. Have a passion and have patience.
Advice I would give to a new child welfare professional is to understand that the job is complex, but you can also create a community in your organization, because I did. I was able to really lean on my colleagues. My colleagues became my friends. One of them became my very best friend, and we were able to go out and engage families together. You get to debrief the things that you're seeing, so you're not alone. I think when you get isolated and you feel alone in the work, you won't remain there long. So when you come into this field, you're going to have a lot of things thrown at you, but build a community and lean on your colleagues for support.
These are the messages that our interviewees want to convey to all levels of the child welfare workforce.
Just keep fighting a good fight. I know it gets tough, I know it gets rough sometimes. I think it's an occupation, I think it's a job that you don't choose, it kind of chooses you. And you're kind of plucked out and say, this is what you need to do. That's what fulfills me. That's what gets me going every day. I really don't need coffee. I don't need a Coke. I just need to know that I have a chance to make a little bit of a difference, just a little bit, every single day. So that's good enough for me.
I wanted to say thank you to everybody in the child welfare. Everybody does their part. It's a really difficult job no matter what level you are working at.
We're always trying to find new ways to make things easier. The things that were in place when I first started are completely different than how they are now. So for example, is the all county. We had geographical areas, and some of the geographical areas were being overwhelmed more than others. So then when we went all county, it kind of took off some of the pressure from the overwhelmed parts of the county.
If there is anything else that I could say, it would just to continue to do this work. It is a much needed work. It is a calling. It is truly a ministry. They cannot pay us enough to do it, but we continue to do it, and I encourage and motivate you all to continue fighting in this good fight. And I appreciate you all. Thank you.
To my fellow child welfare frontline co-workers, hang in there. We may not get the kudos every day. Your boss may not see it, but just think about that one child whose life you've saved, or that one family that you've kept together, that mom that you've let her know that you're doing your best and we're gonna support you, that dad that you have turned his entire life around and he's no longer battering or drinking or tearing his family apart. Just think about the impact that you have made, and if you can find one family that you have made an impact on, your job is not in vain. Hang in there, don't give up. We are needed out here. Just keep up the good work. To the, what we call upper heads, our leaders in the department, a lot of you were where I am today. I would say to you, don't forget when you were here. The same support that you felt that you needed while you were a frontline worker, we need that now and more. Don't forget where you started from. We need that support. We need to know that it doesn't matter what's going on, that someone in the higher ups has our back. A lot of times we don't feel you guys. We don't feel your support. We don't feel as though we matter. And it's important for us to know that, because a lot of times just knowing that we're not out here by ourselves, that y'all actually have our backs, is just the push that we need to go a little bit further for that family. So let us know that you have our backs, and we'll do what we need to do out here for these families.
Thank you to all the social workers, CPIs, case management, therapists. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing.
While we research the systemic changes that are needed to decrease burnout and turnover, integrating the perspectives of child welfare frontline professionals is imperative. Change in the child welfare system needs to be felt at all levels.
One thing I would like to see changed is more services for our families, our children, and not only for our foster families, but our bio families, our relatives, non-relatives, our parents, just more wraparound services to really help them, to really mend the family, to really bring the family together.
What I would like to see changed in our industry is if we could streamline the referral process. If we could have one referral to then shoot out to multiple agencies, that would help us, because it would save a lot of time. So now I don't have to fill out the application or referral or different referral for multiple different agencies.
One thing I would like to see change in my industry as a social worker is find ways to keep case managers. I think they're very important to have the same case manager with the same child for a long time, because their relationship, is very important. A case manager is very important for a child. So it's very important for the child attend daycare, for the child school, family reunification is really important. Turnover is very high, and the kids are really confused, and then you see new case manager, next week there's a new one, 2 weeks later. So relationship matters, to all of us, especially children who are already traumatized.
What I would like to see changed in the child welfare workforce is, of course, more prevention. And I know that prevention is trendy, and people are probably nodding, saying, of course we want prevention. But as someone who did that investigative work, I just would love for families not to get to that point where they get the help they need before a CPI has to come to their home and investigate their parenting and investigate their decisions. So I would like a complete shift in the organization where they are postured toward preventing families from coming into the system. And we utilize all of the critical thinking and the ethics and the skills that we get from studying social work or studying adjacent disciplines, that we use those skills to move upstream for families, because I believe that's what will make the most impact. I would also love for the organization as a whole to think about equity. I think that it will be important for us to realize that so many families are dealing with intractable poverty and they're not getting equitable services, and also marginalized families of color in the system. Folks that don't speak the English language, folks that are struggling through intersections of inequity. I want us to take an active role in educating the workforce about the unique lens of certain families.
The Institute would like to thank our interviewees for sharing their stories, for the work they do for the families in Florida, for their passion, and for their dedication. The visible and invisible efforts of our workforce keep our families and children safe. They support the well-being of the children and families in our child welfare system. We value every child welfare frontline worker's perspective, input, and commitment.
We want to make it a think tank. We want you to also come and learn, but to be collaborative in what we're doing, we need help, we need partnership if we're really going to make the impact we want to make.
Thank you to Heartland for Children and the Florida Department of Children and Families for welcoming us into their workplace and allowing us to speak with their employees. Special thanks to our interview subjects for sharing their time and perspectives. Learn more about what the Florida Institute for Child Welfare is doing to support our workforce on our website, ficw.fsu.edu. Reach out to us to share your stories.